London lived for moments like this, not for love, not for devotion, but for spectacle. That season the city held its breath around one question whispered in every drawing room and behind every painted fan. Who would the Duke of Ravensshire choose? The answer mattered more than politics, more than war, because the Duke was not just a man. He was a legend carved from pride, wealth, and ice. The Duke of Ravensshire was everything society worshipped and feared. He was young, impossibly rich, heir to an ancient title, and carried himself like a man who had never been denied anything. Mothers prayed over him. Daughters dreamed of him. But those who truly knew him understood a darker truth. He did not dream. He calculated. Love was not a language he spoke. Reputation was his religion. Control was his comfort. The grandest ball of the season was announced in his honor. Ravensshire Palace blazed with light as if the chandeliers themselves wished to be seen. Every eligible young woman within miles arrived, dressed in hope and silk. Jewels flashed. Music swelled. Laughter filled the air, sharp with nerves. At the center of it all, upon a raised seat draped in gold and crimson, sat the Duke. Not as a host, but as a judge. He wore black velvet. His silver cufflinks caught the candlelight like ice. His face was calm, unreadable, bored. He did not wish to be there. He had agreed only because his mother, the formidable Dowager Duchess, had demanded it. She believed power looked better with a wife beside it. He believed marriage was a contract, not a promise. One by one, the young women were presented. One by one, they were dismissed. Too nervous, too eager, too rehearsed, too much perfume, too little sense. His words were quiet, precise, and devastating. Each rejection landed like a slap delivered with gloves. Girls fled the hall in tears. Mothers whispered furiously. The orchestra faltered. The room filled with shame and fascination. The Duke watched it all with cold detachment. To him, this was not cruelty. It was honesty. Love, he believed, was weakness delayed. Years ago, he had loved once. A painter's daughter. Bright, clever, forbidden. She had died suddenly. The truth of it was never spoken aloud. After that, something in him froze. He swore he would never again be ruled by feeling. From that day on, he ruled everything else. As midnight drew closer, the air thickened with dread. The bravest girls hesitated. The Duke leaned back, wine untouched, patience thinning. If he could have dismissed the entire room at once, he would have. He believed in control, not destiny. Yet destiny has a cruel sense of humor. Across the city, far from glitter and music, a modest townhouse glowed under a single lamp. Lady Evelyn Hartwell sat before a mirror while her mother and sister fussed around her. Pins were placed, pearls adjusted. Hopes pressed upon her shoulders like weight. Evelyn's beauty was quiet. It did not demand attention. It asked for it. Her gown was pale blue, borrowed silk altered by her own careful hands. Her family was nearly ruined. Debts waited like wolves. If the Duke chose her, everything would be saved. "You must go," her mother said, voice shaking. "You must be clever. Smile. Be what he wants." Evelyn looked at her reflection, calm and steady.
"And if he wants nothing," she asked softly, "but to humiliate me?"
"Then you endure it," her mother whispered. "We have no other choice." Evelyn turned to the window. The city lay gray beneath the early light. Somewhere beyond the fog stood Ravensshire Palace. She had heard the stories. A cruel duke, a broken heart, a man who enjoyed rejection. She had no wish to conquer him. She only wished to survive. The carriage ride was silent. The palace gates rose like judgment. Inside, golden mirrors stretched endlessly. Her name was called, Lady Evelyn Hartwell. She stepped forward without trembling. No exaggerated curtsy, no eager smile. She stood still. The Duke lifted his gaze, expecting nothing. Something made him pause. Her silence, her composure, the way she did not beg for his attention. "Too still," he said. "Pardon?" she replied calmly. "A woman so silent hides too much." "Perhaps," she said. "I have learned when silence serves better than speech." A ripple moved through the room. The Duke leaned forward, unsettled. He studied her for a long moment. "Not suitable," he said at last. The room exhaled, waiting for tears. Evelyn inclined her head. A faint smile touched her lips. "I accept your rejection, Your Grace." Silence fell like thunder. The orchestra stopped. The Duke froze. "You accept it," he said. "Of course," she replied. "It was never a gift I asked for." She turned and walked away. For the first time that night, the Duke felt something crack. His glass hovered midair. His jaw tightened. No woman had ever dismissed him so cleanly. No one had ever walked away untouched. Whispers erupted. Mothers stared. The Dowager Duchess lowered her fan in disbelief. Evelyn did not look back. Each step carried her farther from him and closer to herself. Then his voice cut through the hall, raw and unrestrained. "You go nowhere." The words struck the walls and held the room hostage. Evelyn stopped. Slowly, she turned to face him. The Duke stood rigid, no longer composed, no longer distant. For the first time, London saw him undone, and in that silence, fate leaned forward, smiling. The Duke's command hung in the air like a blade that had not yet fallen. "You go nowhere." No one breathed. No one dared move. Evelyn Hartwell stood still, her hand resting lightly on the gilded door, her back straight, her chin lifted. She turned slowly, not in fear, but in calm disbelief, and met the gaze of the most powerful man in the room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Fans froze mid-flutter. The orchestra sat stiff, bows hovering uselessly above strings. This was no longer a ball. It was a reckoning. The Duke descended from the dais, each step sharp against the marble floor. He did not look at the crowd. He looked only at her. His voice, when he spoke again, was quieter but far more dangerous. "Lady Evelyn Hartwell will remain at Ravenshire Palace." A shock ran through the room. The Dowager Duchess rose at once, silk whispering in warning. "Ravenshire," she hissed. "You forget yourself." "I remember myself very clearly," he replied without turning. "You were meant to select a bride," she snapped, "not detain a young woman before all of London." "I detain no one," he said. "I extend my protection." Protection. The word sounded like mockery in a room full of witnesses. Every person present understood the danger of this moment. To remain at a man's house without explanation was ruin dressed as courtesy. Evelyn's mother rushed forward, pale and trembling. "Your Grace, please." "My daughter meant no offense." Evelyn gently touched her arm. "Mama, please." The Duke finally looked at Evelyn again. "You will stay," he said. She met his gaze evenly. "If that is your wish, Your Grace," she replied, her voice steady, "I will remain." But not because you command it. The quiet courage of her words unsettled him more than defiance ever could. A murmur swept the room, thick with scandal. The Duke straightened, his pride wounded, his curiosity burning. The ceremony ended abruptly. Guests were dismissed in confusion and delight. By morning, London would be aflame. That night, Ravenshire Palace became something else entirely. Not a home, not a prison, a battleground of wills. Evelyn was escorted to a guest chamber in the East Wing. It was spacious, elegant, and carefully distant from the Duke's private rooms. Rain streaked the windows. She sat by the fire, hands folded, heart steady. She had faced humiliation. She could face uncertainty. Below, the Duke endured his mother's fury. "You have invited disgrace into this house," the Dowager Duchess said, pacing the study. "Do you understand what they will say?" "Let them speak," he replied. "They will call her your mistress. She is nothing of the sort." "Then release her," she demanded. "Now." "No," the Duchess stopped. "You have never refused me before." He turned toward the fire. "Then perhaps it is time." She stared at him, seeing something unfamiliar beneath his control. "This woman will ruin you." "No," he said quietly. "She has already undone me. I only wish to understand why." Morning arrived with gray light and heavy silence. Evelyn joined breakfast, dressed simply, her posture composed. The Duke was already there, staring at letters he had not read. "Good morning," she said. He looked up, startled by her calm. "Did you sleep well?" "Perfectly," she replied, "though I am not used to being the subject of rumor before breakfast." A corner of his mouth twitched. "You will be accustomed to worse if you remain." "I am not afraid of whispers," she said. "Only cages." He studied her, unsettled. Over the following days, he found reasons to summon her, to consult her on books, on charity accounts, on matters he did not truly need her for. Each time she answered with intelligence and restraint. She never flattered, never begged, never tried to impress him. And that, more than beauty, disturbed him deeply. When he paraded former companions through the halls, she barely looked up from her embroidery. When he spoke sharply, she answered with quiet honesty. Once, when he boasted of his influence, she replied, "Power that must announce itself is already uncertain." He laughed then, truly laughed. The sound startled them both. The Dowager Duchess watched closely. "You are changing," she told him one afternoon. "She amuses me," he said too quickly. "No," she replied. "She reveals you." That night, unable to rest, he wandered the corridors until he found himself before a locked door in the west wing. The door he had not opened in years. On impulse, he unlocked it. A fire burned low inside. The room smelled of cedar and memory. Evelyn, wandering with a candle, saw the light beneath the door. Curiosity carried her forward. She entered and saw the veiled portrait at once. "Do not," his voice said sharply. She turned. He stood in the doorway, rain-soaked, hair unbound, defenses stripped away. "I meant no intrusion," she said softly. "That room is closed," he replied. "Then why is it open?" she asked. He hesitated. "Because some wounds refuse to stay buried." She looked at the covered painting. "Who is she?" He closed the door behind him. "She was the only woman I ever loved." The words fell heavy between them. He spoke of her then, of secret meetings, of laughter stolen, of a death never explained, of a heart that froze in self-defense. "I learned that love leaves only loss," he said. "Only if you close the door before it returns," Evelyn replied. The truth of it struck him harder than any accusation. In silence, he pulled the cloth from the portrait. The painted woman smiled softly, alive in memory. "She is beautiful," Evelyn whispered. "She was," he said. "Too gentle for this world." "You did not fail her," Evelyn said. "You survived." He looked at her as if seeing something he had forgotten existed. Mercy. The storm raged outside. Inside, something fragile shifted. When Evelyn left the room, the Duke did not stop her. He stood alone, staring at the past he had imprisoned. By morning, the storm had passed, but inside him, it had only begun. London, meanwhile, was merciless. Whispers sharpened. Headlines bloomed. The Duke, who rejected every woman, now kept one hidden away. The city feasted, and then came the masquerade at Blackwood Hall. The Duke attended, with Evelyn. When they entered together, the ballroom fell silent. Masks turned, music stuttered. He offered his arm. She took it. Together they descended the stairs, defiance woven into every step. She danced with another man that night, a harmless viscount. The Duke watched, jealousy burning through his restraint. When the music ended, he crossed the floor and took her hand. "You've undone me," he said. The words shocked the room. He asked her for a dance, not as a duke, as a man. They danced. Awkwardly, honestly. When it ended, he left without explanation, leaving the city stunned. That was the night London realized the game had changed, and the Duke realized he no longer knew how to play. London did not forgive quietly. It never had. By morning, the city roared with rumor and delight. Teacups trembled in drawing rooms. Voices rose behind lace curtains. Ink stained breakfast tables as headlines screamed of scandal. The Duke of Ravenshire had declared himself undone, and society could not decide whether to condemn him or savor him. Some called it madness. Others called it strategy. A few, more honest than most, called it love, and spat the word as if it tasted bitter. The Duke did not hide. That was what unsettled them most. He did not flee to the countryside. He did not issue denials. He rode home beside Evelyn in silence, his pride shattered but no longer empty. The carriage rolled through wet streets, London blurred beyond the glass. At the palace, he stopped her beneath the great staircase where they had once stood as strangers. "You should despise me," he said quietly. "I do not," Evelyn replied, "but I do not yet understand you." "I am not certain I understand myself," he admitted. "London will tear you apart for this. I cannot protect you from a world I helped build." "Then stop deciding what protection looks like," she said gently. Later that day, letters arrived. Accusations. Threats. Invitations disguised as judgment. The Dowager Duchess paced like a storm trapped in silk. "You have ruined us," she said. "No," he answered. "I have humbled myself." By afternoon, Edelyn packed her trunk. She had learned long ago that leaving was sometimes the only power left to a woman. The Duke found her in the corridor, cloak folded over her arm. "So it is true," he said. "You are going." "Yes," she replied. "Staying where one's presence wounds is another kind of prison. And if I asked you to stay, then I would ask why." He hesitated. Pride had always filled his silences before. Now he had nothing but truth. "Because I do not know who I am without you." She studied him, seeing not a duke, but a man stripped bare by honesty. "You are the same man you were," she said. "Only now you know what love does to power." "And what does it do?" "It makes it small," she answered, "but true." She turned to leave. "Wait," he said, his voice breaking. "I give you your freedom, truly. If you leave, I will not stop you. If you stay, I will not deserve it." Silence settled like snow. Evelyn turned back slowly. "I was never bound," she said. "Not even when you thought I was." She stepped closer. "I will stay, not because you command it, not because London demands it, but because I choose to." The words unmade him more completely than rejection ever could. He did not touch her. He only bowed his head, reverent at last. That evening the palace grew quiet, not the silence of distance, but of peace. When Evelyn entered his study, he spoke without armor. "They call you a witch," he said. "I know. They cannot name what I feel without condemning it." "Then let them condemn," she replied. "Truth does not require permission." He told her then of the woman he had lost, of how love had terrified him more than loneliness ever could. Evelyn listened without judgment, without interruption. "You are not cursed," she said softly. "You are human. And if I fail again, then you will have loved twice," she said. "And that will mean you lived." He reached for her hand, not to claim, but to ask. She met him halfway. "I once believed love was control," he whispered. "Now I know it commands me, and I choose you," she answered. "Not because I need you, but because I want to." Winter arrived quietly. Snow softened the palace lawns. Gossip faded into boredom, as scandals always do. And one morning, without spectacle, without orchestra or crowd, they married. No jewels, no applause. Only vows spoken with trembling honesty. He knelt before her, not as a duke, but as a man. "I rejected every woman," he said, "because I feared being seen. You saw me and forgave what you found." "You were never hard to see," she replied, "only hard to reach." They walked into the pale morning together, leaving London to invent new stories. Titles mattered less. Power bowed to peace. And so ends the tale that began with pride and ended with grace. A duke who learned obedience through love. A woman who ruled by choice. Sometimes rebellion is quiet. Sometimes forgiveness is the greatest scandal of all.